The message came at 0600 hours, just as Taiho was finishing his morning coffee in the engineering bay. The words on his tablet were simple, but they changed everything. His 3-year service aboard the Horizon's Edge was ending. He had been reassigned to Earth's new colony on Kepler 442b. It was a promotion. He had not asked for it. Ho set down his coffee and read the message again. The Galactic Coalition had decided. There was no discussion, no warning. In 14 days, he would leave this ship. He would leave the crew he had worked with. He would leave the life he had built among the stars. He looked around the engineering bay. The walls hummed with the soft sound of the ship's engines. Alien crew members walked past him, their different shapes and colors mixing together like a strange painting. A tall Krellian with 4 arms nodded at him. A small Mindery with glowing eyes waved. They had all become his friends, his family. 3 years ago, humans were nothing to the galaxy. They were young. They were aggressive. They were dangerous. The other species watched them with fear and doubt. When Taiho first came aboard the Horizon's Edge, nobody wanted to work with him. They thought humans were too wild, too unpredictable, too short-lived to matter. But things changed. Slowly, day by day, humans proved themselves. They worked harder than anyone expected. They solved problems in ways nobody else could imagine. They laughed in the face of danger and refused to give up, even when giving up was the smart thing to do. Taiho remembered his first week on the ship. A reactor in Section 7 had started to fail. The readings were bad, very bad. The alien engineers ran their calculations and said there was nothing they could do. The reactor would melt down in 2 hours. 300 crew members would die. But Taiho did not accept that answer. He grabbed a roll of emergency tape, a metal rod, and a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. He ran into the reactor room while everyone else ran away. The heat was terrible. His skin burned. His lungs screamed for air. But he kept moving. The other engineers watched on their screens as this strange human crawled through melting pipes and sparking wires. They watched him wrap tape around broken seals. They watched him jam the metal rod into a place it was never designed to go. They watched him do something no computer program would ever suggest. And it worked. The reactor stabilized. The explosion never came. 300 lives were saved by a roll of tape, and a human who was too stubborn to die. After that day, everything changed. The crew started to trust Taiho. They started to respect him. They started to see that humans were not just dangerous. They were also brave. They were also kind. They were also willing to burn themselves up to save others. Now, 3 years later, Taiho was leaving. The thought made his chest feel heavy. That evening, the crew held a small farewell gathering in the recreation deck. Different species came together, sharing food and drinks that Taiho could barely recognize. Some were sweet. Some were bitter. Some tasted like nothing he had ever experienced before. His friend Nari stood beside him. She was a human xenolinguist, someone who studied alien languages and helped people understand each other. She had been on the ship almost as long as Taiho, and she knew everyone's secrets. "You look sad," Nari said. "I am not sad," Taiho replied. "I am just thinking." Nari smiled. She did not believe him. "You are going to miss this place." "Maybe," Taiho admitted. "This ship has been my home. These people have been my family. It is hard to leave." Nari nodded. She understood. Humans always form connections quickly. It was one of their greatest strengths and their greatest weaknesses. They loved fast. They cared deep. And when they had to leave, it hurt more than they wanted to admit. Across the room, Taiho noticed someone watching him. It was Lyra, the Valorian ambassador. She stood near the window, her silver-white hair falling past her shoulders like moonlight. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Her eyes, which usually shifted through warm colors, were now a cold gray. Taiho felt something twist in his chest. Over the past year, he and Lyra had spent many hours talking. She was curious about humans. She asked him questions about Earth, about human culture, about human feelings. Taiho answered every question honestly. He told her about love and loss, about hope and fear, about how humans could feel so much in their short lives. Lyra always listened carefully. Sometimes her eyes would shift to colors Taiho did not understand. Sometimes she would look at him in a way that made him forget to breathe. But tonight, she was distant, cold. When their eyes met across the room, she looked away quickly. Taiho wanted to go to her. He wanted to ask her what was wrong. But something held him back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was doubt. Maybe it was the knowledge that in 14 days he would be gone, and whatever existed between them would fade like starlight at dawn. The gathering ended late. Taiho returned to his small room, tired but unable to sleep. He sat on his bed and stared at the ceiling. The stars outside his window moved slowly, endless and eternal. Just as he was about to close his eyes, he noticed something on his pillow. A small crystal, no bigger than his thumb. It was pale blue, the same color as Lyra's skin. It caught the starlight and glowed softly. Taiho picked it up carefully. It was warm to the touch, which surprised him. He had seen crystals like this before. Valorians sometimes gave them as gifts, but he did not know what they meant. He held the crystal in his palm and wondered why Lyra had left it for him. Was it a goodbye? A thank you? Or something more? He did not know. And that unknowing stayed with him through the night, keeping him awake until the stars began to fade and the ship's lights slowly brightened for a new day. 14 days. That was all the time he had left. Taiho closed his fingers around the crystal and made a silent promise. Before he left this ship, he would find out what it meant. He would find out what Lyra was trying to tell him. He owed himself that much. He owed her that much. Outside, the galaxy stretched on forever. Billions of stars. Trillions of worlds. Countless stories waiting to be told. And somewhere in all that vastness, one human and one Valorian were beginning to realize that some connections could not be measured by time or distance. Some connections simply were. Taiho held the crystal close and waited for the morning to come. The alarm came 3 days after the farewell gathering. It was loud and sharp, cutting through the normal sounds of the ship like a knife. Taiho was in the engineering bay when the emergency lights started flashing red. He ran to the nearest communication panel and pressed the button. The voice of Admiral Kress, a tall Zentari with scales the color of burnt copper, filled the room. All senior crew to the command deck. We have received a distress signal. A research vessel is stranded in the Crimson Nebula. They have less than 6 hours of oxygen remaining. Taiho felt his heart beat faster. The Crimson Nebula was one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. Radiation storms could tear through metal like paper. Energy waves could destroy a ship's engines in seconds. Going into that nebula was almost suicide. He made his way to the command deck quickly. When he arrived, the room was already full of officers from different species. Nari stood near the back, her face pale with worry. And there, near the main viewing screen, stood Lyra. Her eyes were a deep orange, a color Taiho now knew meant concern. Admiral Kress pointed to the screen. A small dot blinked in the middle of a swirling red cloud. The research vessel Starlight has 18 crew members aboard. Their engines failed 2 hours ago. They drifted into the nebula before they could escape. A Mindari officer raised his hand. Admiral, standard protocol says we wait for the specialized rescue fleet. They have ships designed for nebula conditions. We do not. The rescue fleet is 12 hours away. Admiral Kress replied. The Starlight crew has 6 hours. Less, maybe. By the time help arrives, they will all be dead. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew what the Admiral was saying. Standard protocol would save nobody today. But breaking protocol meant risking more lives. Teo stepped forward. I will go. Every head in the room turned to look at him. Admiral Kress narrowed his yellow eyes. Engineer Taiho, your transfer papers have already been signed. You have no obligation to this mission. I know, Taiho said simply. But someone has to go. And I am good at not dying. A few crew members laughed nervously. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Humans were known for saying things like this. They were known for walking into fire when everyone else walked away. Nari grabbed his arm. Taiho, this is crazy. The radiation in that nebula will kill you. Maybe, Taiho admitted. But those 18 people will definitely die if nobody tries. I would rather take a maybe than accept a definitely. Lyra watched him from across the room. Her eyes had changed to a pale violet, a color Taiho had never seen before. She said nothing, but her hands were pressed tightly together, and her breathing was faster than normal. Admiral Kress studied Taiho for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. Assemble a volunteer team. You leave in 30 minutes. The shuttle that entered the Crimson Nebula was small. It had 5 crew members. Taiho was the pilot. 2 Krellians handled weapons. A Mindari managed communications. And 1 human medic named Jiwoo sat in the back, her medical kit ready. The nebula was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Red clouds swirled around them like angry gods. Lightning crackled in the distance, huge bolts of energy that could destroy mountains. The shuttle shook as radiation waves hit its shields. Shields at 70%, the Mindari reported. His voice was calm, but his glowing eyes flickered with fear. Keep going, Taiho said. He gripped the controls tightly. His hands were sweating, but his mind was clear. He had flown through worse. Maybe. Probably not. But he told himself he had. They found the Starlight drifting near the center of the nebula. It was a small ship, barely bigger than their shuttle. Lights flickered on and off. The hull had cracks running along its surface like scars. Starlight, this is rescue shuttle from Horizon's Edge. Do you read us? Static, then a weak voice. We read you. Please hurry. Our oxygen is at 4%. Taiho pushed the shuttle closer. The radiation alarm screamed. The shields dropped to 50%, then 40%. The Krellians muttered prayers in their own language. Jiwoo closed her eyes and took deep breaths. I am going out, Taiho announced. Everyone stared at him. Out? The Mindari repeated. Into the nebula? The radiation will kill me in about 15 minutes, Taiho finished. That gives me enough time to connect our ship to theirs and extend our shields. Just keep the shuttle steady. Before anyone could argue, Taiho put on his spacesuit and entered the airlock. The door closed behind him. For a moment, there was only silence and darkness. Then, the outer door opened, and the nebula welcomed him. The radiation hit him immediately. It was like stepping into fire. His suit's warning lights turned red. His body temperature rose. Every cell in his body screamed in pain. But Taiho kept moving. He floated across the gap between the 2 ships. The distance was only 30 meters, but it felt like forever. The nebula's energy waves pushed against him, trying to knock him away. His vision blurred. His hand shook, but he did not stop. He reached the Starlight and grabbed onto its hull. His magnetic boots locked in place. He pulled out his tools and started working on the connection port. His fingers felt clumsy. The radiation was affecting his nervous system. He had maybe 5 minutes left before he could not control his movements anymore. He worked faster. The connection cable locked into place. He activated the shield extension. A bubble of energy spread from the shuttle to the starlight, protecting both ships. "Connection complete," Taiho said into his radio, his voice weak. "Bring them aboard." He tried to make his way back to the shuttle, but his legs would not move properly. His vision was fading. The pain was becoming too much. The last thing he saw was the shuttle's airlock opening. The last thing he felt was hands grabbing him, pulling him inside. Then everything went dark. Taiho woke up in the medical bay of the Horizon's Edge. Jiwoo stood beside him, her face tired but relieved. "You were out for 8 hours," she said. "The radiation almost killed you. Your heart stopped twice." "But I am still here," Taiho whispered. "Yes, you are." Jiwoo shook her head. "All 18 crew members from the Starlight survived. Because of you." Taiho closed his eyes and smiled. The pain was worth it. The risk was worth it. 18 lives were worth everything. Later that night, Lyra came to the medical bay. She stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching him. Her eyes were a color Taiho had never seen, a mixture of blue and gold that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. "Why?" she finally asked. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "Why do humans always do this? Why do you risk everything for strangers?" Taiho looked at her. Despite the pain in his body, he felt something warm in his chest. "Because someone has to," he said simply. "And because those strangers might have families waiting for them. They might have dreams they have not finished. They might have words they have not said yet. Everyone deserves a chance to finish their story." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to his bedside and sat down in the chair beside him. "Your species confuses me," she admitted. "You live such short lives. 80 years, maybe 100. We Valorians live for thousands. Yet you fill your small lives with so much meaning, so much passion, so much love." She looked at him with those shifting eyes. "It makes me wonder if we have been living wrong all along." Taiho reached out and took her hand. It was cool against his burning skin. "Maybe length of life is not what matters," he said. "Maybe it is what you do with the time you have." Lyra did not pull her hand away. She held on to him, and for the first time since he had known her, she seemed almost human. Outside, the stars kept turning. The galaxy kept spinning. And 2 souls from different worlds sat together in silence, beginning to understand something that words could not explain. 3 days remained before Taiho had to leave the Horizon's Edge. His body was recovering from the radiation damage, but his heart was more troubled than ever. Something was wrong with Lyra. He could feel it in the way she avoided his eyes. He could see it in the way she disappeared whenever he entered a room. After their conversation in the medical bay, Taiho had hoped things between them would become clearer. Instead, Lyra had become more distant. She stopped visiting the engineering bay. She stopped joining the crew for meals. She stopped answering his messages. Taiho did not understand what he had done wrong. He found Nari in the linguistics lab, surrounded by alien texts and translation devices. She looked up when he entered and immediately knew something was troubling him. "You have that look again," she said. "What look?" "The look that says you are thinking about Lyra and you do not know what to do." Taiho sat down heavily in the chair across from her. "She is avoiding me. Ever since I came back from the Nebula rescue, she barely looks at me. I thought we had a connection. I thought—" He trailed off. He did not know how to finish the sentence. Nari set down her work and studied him carefully. "Have you ever asked yourself what that crystal meant? The one she left on your pillow?" Taiho reached into his pocket and pulled out the small blue crystal. He had been carrying it everywhere since that night. "I do not know what it means. I was hoping to find out, but how can I when she will not even talk to me?" Nari took a deep breath. I have been studying Valorian culture for 2 years. Their language, their customs, their history. They are one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They have seen empires rise and fall. They have watched stars be born and die. I know all this, Taiho said impatiently. But what does it have to do with the crystal? Everything. Nari leaned forward. Valorians form bonds very differently than humans. They are careful, slow. They take decades, sometimes centuries, to open their hearts to someone. Their emotions run deep, but they keep them hidden. They believe that showing feelings too quickly is dangerous. Foolish. Taiho listened, his heart beating faster. That crystal is called a soul stone, Nari continued. Valorians give them only to people they care about deeply. And when I say deeply, I mean it in a way that is almost sacred to them. For a Valorian to give a soul stone after knowing someone for only 1 year. She shook her head in amazement. It has probably never happened before in their entire history. Taiho stared at the crystal in his hand. It suddenly felt much heavier than before. Lyra is scared, Nari said softly. She is feeling things she was never taught to feel. Her entire culture tells her that emotions should be controlled. That love should come slowly, carefully, after centuries of consideration. But you humans, she laughed gently. You broke all the rules. You made her feel something in months that should have taken lifetimes. Taiho stood up suddenly. I need to find her. She is probably at the observation deck, Nari called after him. She goes there every night now. Just be gentle with her. She's fighting a battle inside herself that you cannot see. The observation deck was empty when Taiho arrived. But he waited. He stood near the massive windows and watched the stars pass by. Millions of them. Billions. Each one a sun. Each one possibly surrounded by worlds full of life and love and stories that would never be told. An hour passed. Then, too, Taiho began to think that Lyra would not come. Maybe she knew he was waiting. Maybe she was avoiding him again. But just as he was about to give up, the door opened. Lyra stepped inside. She was wearing a simple white robe, and her silver hair was loose around her shoulders. When she saw Taiho, she stopped. Her eyes widened and shifted through several colors: gray, blue, purple, gold. I can leave, Taiho said quickly. I do not want to bother you. No, her voice was barely above a whisper. Stay, please. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. The galaxy stretched out before them like an endless ocean of light. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning around its small yellow sun. Taiho's birthplace. His first home. Now it felt very far away. I've been thinking about your species, Lyra finally said. About humans? You confuse me more than anything else in this universe. We confuse ourselves too, Taiho admitted with a small smile. Lyra did not smile back. Her eyes were now a deep blue, almost sad. You live such short lives. 80 years. Maybe 100. In the time it takes a Valorian to decide what to eat for breakfast, a human is born, grows old, and dies. That is a bit of an exaggeration, Taiho said gently. Perhaps. Lyra turned to face him fully. But here is what I do not understand. Despite your short lives, you fill them with so much. So much love. So much passion. So much meaning. You do not wait for the right moment. You do not calculate the risks. You simply feel, and you act on those feelings without hesitation. Taiho stepped closer to her. Is that bad? I do not know. Her voice trembled slightly. My people would say it is foolish, reckless, dangerous. But watching you, watching how you threw yourself into that nebula to save strangers, watching how you treat every moment like it matters. She paused, struggling for words. It makes me question everything I was taught. Taiho reached out and gently took her hand. She flinched at first, then relaxed. Her skin was cool and smooth, but he could feel something beneath, a warmth that pulsed softly. "Let me tell you about human love," he said softly. "It is not rational. It does not make sense. It does not wait for the right time or the right place. Sometimes it just happens, like lightning. You meet someone, and suddenly the universe feels different. Colors seem brighter. Music sounds sweeter. Every moment feels precious because you are sharing it with that person." Lyra's eyes shifted to a pale violet. "That sounds terrifying." "It is," Taiho agreed. "It is the most terrifying thing in the world. Because when you love someone, you give them the power to hurt you. You open yourself completely. You become vulnerable in ways that cannot be protected. Then why do it?" Lyra asked. "Why take such a risk?" Taiho smiled. "Because the alternative is worse. Living without love is like living without light. You survive, but you never really live. You exist, but you never feel alive." Lyra was silent for a long moment. Her eyes kept changing colors: blue, gold, violet, pink. Taiho wished he knew what each color meant. He wished he could read her thoughts. "I have lived for 400 years, she finally said. "In all that time, I have never felt what I feel now. It is like there is a storm inside me, something wild and uncontrollable, something that makes me want to run away and run toward you at the same time." She looked at him with those shifting eyes. "Is this what love feels like?" Before Taiho could answer, an alarm suddenly blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. The entire observation deck shook as something struck the horizon's edge. Taiho grabbed Lyra's arm to steady her. "What is happening?" The ship's communication system crackled to life. Admiral Kress's voice was sharp with urgency. "All crew to battle stations. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack." The moment between them shattered like glass. Taiho looked at Lyra one last time. There was so much more he wanted to say, so much more he needed to explain. But war did not wait for love. He squeezed her hand tightly. "Stay safe," he said. Then he ran toward the engineering bay, leaving Lyra alone in the observation deck. She stood there, watching him go, her eyes now a deep gold, the color of fear and something else. Something that might have been hope. The attack had begun, and nothing would be the same again. The horizon's edge was burning. Explosions ripped through its corridors. Smoke filled the air. The screams of crew members mixed with the howl alarms. Taiho ran through the chaos, dodging falling debris and jumping over broken pipes. The attackers were a faction called the Iron Veil. They were a group of radicals who believed the Galactic Coalition was corrupt. They wanted to destroy everything the Coalition had built. They wanted to watch the galaxy burn. When Taiho reached the engineering bay, he found it half destroyed. 3 of his team members were injured on the floor. Sparks flew from broken machines. Fire crawled along the walls. "Report!" Taiho shouted over the noise. A young Krellian engineer crawled toward him, her forearms covered in burns. "They hit our main engine core. We have lost propulsion. Shields are at 15%. If they hit us again, we are dead." Taiho helped her stand. "Where are the emergency repair kits?" "Destroyed. Everything is destroyed." Taiho's mind raced. Without engines, the ship was helpless. Without shields, the next attack would tear them apart. He needed to think. He needed to find a solution. Then his communicator beeped. A familiar voice came through. "Taiho, this is Sunho. Do you read me?" Sunho, his older brother, captain of the human vessel Dawnbreaker. He had arrived just yesterday to escort Taiho to his new assignment. Now, he was caught in the middle of a battle. I read you, brother, Taiho replied. What is your status? We are engaging the enemy fleet. There are 6 hostile ships. We can hold them off for maybe 10 minutes. After that, they will focus everything on the horizon's edge. 10 minutes is not enough time to fix the engines. Then do not fix the engines. Sunho's voice was calm, steady. It was the voice of a man who had faced death many times and never blinked. Focus on getting the shields back up. We will handle the rest. The communication cut off. Taiho could see the Dawnbreaker through a crack in the ceiling. It was a smaller ship, but it moved like lightning. Plasma fire erupted from its weapons as it charged towards ships 3 times its size. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not wait for favorable odds. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They simply attacked with everything they had and refused to stop until either they won or they died. Taiho turned to his injured crew. Can you walk? The Krellian nodded weakly. Barely. Then follow me. We are going to reroute power from the life support backups to the shield generators. It will be cold and hard to breathe for a while, but we will survive. They moved through the damaged ship like shadows. Every corridor was filled with danger. Enemy soldiers had boarded the horizon's edge. Taiho could hear weapons fire in the distance. He could smell blood and smoke dot as they passed the command deck. Taiho saw something that made his heart freeze. Admiral Kress was on the ground, injured. Standing over him were 3 Iron Veil soldiers with weapons raised. Sunho was there too. He had boarded the horizon's edge to help defend the command deck. Now he stood between the Admiral and the enemy, his plasma rifle ready. Drop your weapon, human, one of the Iron Veil soldiers said. You cannot fight all 3 of us. Sunho smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile that Taiho knew well. Watch me. What happened next was almost too fast to follow. Sunho moved like water, flowing between the enemy soldiers. He fired once, twice, 3 times. 2 soldiers fell, but the 3rd managed to shoot back. The plasma bolt hit Sunho in the side. He stumbled, but did not fall. With his last shot, he took down the 3rd soldier. Then he collapsed beside Admiral Kress. Sunho! Taiho ran to his brother's side. Blood was everywhere. The wound was bad. Very bad. I am fine, Sunho lied. His face was pale, but his eyes were still sharp. Go fix those shields. I will hold this position. You cannot even stand. I do not need to stand to shoot. Sunho gripped his rifle tightly. Go, little brother. Save this ship. That is an order. Taiho wanted to argue. He wanted to stay. But he knew Sunho was right. The ship needed shields. Without them, everyone would die. He left his brother behind and continued toward the shield generators. Every step felt like a betrayal. But he kept moving. That was what humans did. They kept moving, even when their hearts were breaking. The shield generators were located in a small room near the bottom of the ship. When Taiho arrived, he found it guarded by 4 more Iron Veil soldiers. He had no weapon. He had only his engineering tools and his stubborn human spirit. He picked up a plasma cutter from his belt. It was designed for cutting metal, not fighting. But Taiho did not care. He stepped into the room. Hey, he said calmly. I need that room. The soldiers turned and raised their weapons. Taiho moved. He was not a trained fighter like Sunho. He did not have military skills or combat experience. But he had something else. He had desperation. He had love for his crew. He had the human ability to ignore impossible odds and fight anyway. The plasma cutter was not a weapon, but in his hands, it became one. He ducked under the first shot. He rolled past the second. He slashed at the 3rd soldier's weapon, cutting it in half. The 4th soldier tried to grab him, but Taiho was faster. He was smaller. He was human. 11 minutes. That was how long the fight lasted. 11 minutes of pain and blood and refusing to die. When it was over, all 4 soldiers were down. Taiho was covered in cuts and bruises. His left arm was burned. His ribs were probably broken, but he was still standing. He limped to the shield controls and began rerouting power. His fingers moved automatically. His vision was blurry from blood and tears. But he kept working. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, work." The ship shook as another explosion hit. The lights flickered. Somewhere, alarms were still screaming. Then, finally, the shield indicators turned green. "Shields at 40% and rising," the ship's computer announced. Shield stability restored. Taiho collapsed against the wall. He had done it. The ship would survive. His crew would live. His communicator crackled. "Taiho, this is Nari. Sunho is in the medical bay. He is stable. The Admiral is safe. The enemy fleet is retreating." Tears rolled down Taiho's face. Relief, exhaustion, joy. They all mixed together into something he could not name. "What about Lyra?" They asked weakly. "Is she safe?" There was a pause. Then Nari's voice came back, soft and strange. "She is safe. And Taiho, she's on her way to you right now. She refused to leave your side until she saw you were okay." Taiho closed his eyes and smiled. His body was broken. His heart was tired. But somewhere in all that pain, there was light. The door to the shield room opened. Lyra stood there, her silver hair wild and her eyes glowing with a color Taiho had never seen before. Gold and blue and violet, all mixed together like a sunrise. She ran to him and fell to her knees beside him. Her hands touched his face, his arms, his chest. She was checking for wounds. She was making sure he was alive. "You fool," she whispered. Her voice was shaking. "You beautiful, reckless, impossible fool." Taiho laughed weakly. "That is the nicest thing anyone has ever called me." Lyra pressed her forehead against his. Her skin was cool and soft. Her breath was warm against his face. "I thought I lost you," she said. "When I saw the fighting, when I heard about the shield room, I thought—" She could not finish the sentence. Tears were falling from her eyes. Real tears. Something Valorians were not supposed to have. Taiho reached up and wiped them away gently. "I am still here," he said. "I am still here." Outside, the battle was ending. The Iron Veil was retreating. The Coalition had won. But in that small room, surrounded by broken machines and flickering lights, something else was beginning. Something that had been growing for a year. Something that neither species nor distance, nor time could stop. Love. Pure and terrifying and beautiful. Lyra held Taiho in her arms as the medical team arrived. She refused to let go. She refused to leave his side. And for the first time in 400 years, she understood what humans meant when they said that some things were worth dying for. 2 weeks had passed since the attack. The horizon's edge was slowly healing. Repair crews worked day and night to fix the damage. The corridors were still scarred with burn marks, but life was returning to normal. Crew members laughed again. They shared meals. They told stories about the battle, about the brave humans who had saved them all. Taiho spent most of those 2 weeks in the medical bay. His injuries were serious. Broken ribs, a burned arm, internal bleeding that the doctors had barely managed to stop. But humans were tough, stubborn. They healed faster than anyone expected. Sunho recovered too. He was already walking around, giving orders, pretending he had not almost died protecting the Admiral. When the brothers reunited, they did not say much. They just held each other for a long moment. Some things did not need words. the Galactic Coalition sent a message of thanks to every human aboard the ship. They said that humanity had proven itself again. That humans were not just allies but heroes. That the galaxy owed them a debt that could never be repaid. But Taiho did not care about thanks or glory. He only cared about one thing. His departure had been delayed by 2 weeks because of his injuries. Tomorrow morning, the transport ship would arrive. Tomorrow morning, he would leave the horizon's edge forever. Tomorrow morning, he would leave Lyra. She had visited him every day during his recovery. She brought him Valorian tea that tasted like flowers and starlight. She sat beside his bed and told him stories about her home world. She held his hand while he slept, thinking he did not know. But he always knew. He could feel her presence even in his dreams. They talked about many things during those 2 weeks. They talked about life and death, about love and fear, about what it meant to be human and what it meant to be Valorian. They talked until the ship's lights dimmed and the stars took over the sky. But they never talked about tomorrow. On his last night, Taiho could not sleep. He lay in his medical bed and stared at the ceiling. His body was almost healed, but his heart felt heavier than ever. He kept thinking about Lyra's eyes, about her voice, about the way she smiled when she thought no one was watching. He kept thinking about all the things he wanted to say, but could not find the words. Around midnight, the door to his room opened softly. Lyra stood in the doorway. She was wearing a simple white dress that flowed around her like moonlight. Her silver hair was loose, falling past her shoulders in gentle waves. Her eyes were a deep violet, a color that seemed to hold both sadness and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. She did not speak at first. She just stood there, looking at him. The ship was quiet. Everyone else was sleeping. The only sound was the soft hum of the engines and the distant whisper of stars passing by. Taiho sat up slowly. His ribs still hurt, but he did not care. Lyra, she walked toward him. Each step was careful, measured, like she was walking on ice that might break at any moment. When she reached his bedside, she stopped. They looked at each other for a long moment. So many unspoken words hung in the air between them. So many feelings that neither of them knew how to express. Then Lyra spoke. "Before I leave," she said softly, "I want to inquire something." Taiho's heart froze. Not from fear, not from pain, from excitement, from the terrifying, wonderful possibility that what he felt might actually be returned. "Ask me anything," he whispered. Lyra took a deep breath. Her eyes shifted through colors, blue and gold and violet and pink, like a galaxy being born. "I have lived for 400 years, she began. "In all that time, I have never questioned my people's ways. We are patient. We are careful. We do not rush into feelings. We believe that love should come slowly, after centuries of consideration." She paused. Her hands were trembling slightly. "But then I met you. A human who lives only 80 years. A human who throws himself into danger to save strangers. A human who speaks of love like it is the most natural thing in the universe." She looked at him with those shifting eyes. "You taught me that my people might be wrong. That maybe we have been so careful with our hearts that we forgot how to use them. That maybe living for thousands of years means nothing if those years are empty." Taiho reached out and took her hand. It was cool and soft, but he could feel warmth beneath the surface. A warmth that was growing. "Lyra," he said gently, "what is your question?" She stepped closer. Now she was standing right beside his bed. Her face was only inches from his. He could see every detail. The slight glow of her skin. The way her eyes kept changing colors. The single tear that was forming at the corner of her eye. "I am not leaving the horizon's edge," she said. "I have told the coalition that I wish to continue my work here. But your transfer papers are signed. Tomorrow, you will go to Kepler 442b. You will be far away. And I... Her voice broke. The tear fell down her cheek like a small star. I do not want you to go, she whispered. I know it is selfish. I know I have no right to ask. But I am asking anyway. Because humans taught me that sometimes you have to risk everything for what matters. Sometimes you have to say the words, even if they might break you. She squeezed his hand tightly. Will you stay? She asked. Not for the ship. Not for the crew. For me. Will you stay with me? Taiho looked at her. His heart was pounding so hard, he thought it might explode. A year of glances across crowded rooms. A year of conversations that never quite said what they meant. A year of wanting something he was too afraid to name. And now, finally, she was asking. I thought you would never ask, he whispered. Lyra's eyes widened. The colors in them stopped shifting and settled into a warm, beautiful gold. Joy. Pure, unguarded joy. Is that a yes? She asked, her voice trembling. Taiho smiled. He reached up and gently wiped the tear from her cheek. Yes, 1,000 times yes. 1,000,000 times yes. For however many years I have left in this short human life, I want to spend them with you. Lyra let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. Her skin was cool against his warmth. Her breath was soft against his face. I love you, she said. The words seemed to surprise her as much as they surprised him. I do not know when it started. I do not know how it happened. But I love you, Taiho, more than I have ever loved anything in 400 years. Taiho felt tears forming in his own eyes. Happy tears. The kind that came when something broken finally became whole. I love you too, he said. I have loved you since the first time you asked me about human feelings. I was just too scared to say it. They stayed like that for a long time. Forehead to forehead. Hand in hand. Two souls from different worlds, finally admitting what they had known all along. Outside the window, the stars drifted by. Billions of them. Trillions. Each one a reminder of how big the universe was and how small they were. But in that small room, aboard a ship floating in the endless dark, none of that mattered, because they had found each other. And that was enough. In the morning, Taiho sent a message to Coalition headquarters. He requested a transfer cancellation. He requested to stay aboard the Horizon's Edge indefinitely. The request was approved within hours. When he told Sunho, his brother just laughed. About time, Sunho said. Everyone on this ship knew you two were in love. Everyone except you. Nari cried when she heard the news. Happy tears. She hugged Taiho so tightly that his still healing ribs protested. And Lyra. Lyra stayed by his side. In the months that followed, their stories spread across the galaxy. A human and a Valorian. Two species that should have had nothing in common. Two hearts that found each other against all odds. Some said it was impossible. Some said it was foolish. Some said it would never last. But they were wrong. Because humanity's greatest strength was never their resilience or their bravery or their stubborn refusal to die. It was their capacity to connect, to love, to make others feel less alone in an infinite universe. And Lyra, who had lived for 400 years, finally understood what it meant to truly live. She understood because a human, with only 80 years, taught her. She understood because sometimes the shortest lives burn the brightest. She understood because love does not measure time. It only measures depth. And their love was deeper than any ocean, wider than any galaxy, stronger than any force in the universe. It was, perhaps, the most human thing of all, and it would last forever.